Hey, so you got this really cool project or library that you've created that really fits a need in the software industry, and you're thinking that you should release that as open source. Well, I'm here to tell you that that is going to require a level of time and money that you aren't quite prepared for. Now, if you're happy with that answer, thanks for watching. Don't forget to buy my book. If you want to know more, stick around and I'll tell you why I came to that conclusion. Hey, what's up? I'm Will from DevOps for Developers, and I want to talk to you about releasing code as open source software. So now you've got this idea, you've got this software project that you really think fits a need in the industry, and it's popular these days to release it as open source software. But let's talk about some of the pitfalls of that. So whenever you release something as open source software, you're by default committing to the maintenance of that and fixing any bugs that are identified in it. You're also committing to release new features to expand the functionality of that software. And you also have to keep it up to date with current releases. For example, if you're writing a package that runs in Node.js, every time there's a new version of Node.js that comes out, you have to update your software or ensure your software is compatible with that, which happens currently every 6 months. So you know for a fact that every 6 months you're going to be testing this code against some new version of Node.js. Now, one of the common thought patterns for people releasing their first open source project is that they're going to build a community around this, and you'll have contributors that want to come in and help grow and expand and support your package. And that can be true, but in many cases that's not true, or if it does become true, it doesn't happen until your software has been out for a couple years and has gained popularity and credibility and is widely used within whatever environment you've built it for. If you look at some of the more common open source libraries today and you go over to GitHub and look at the commit history or the insights for that, you'll see that there's a large number of them that are only supported by 1 or 2 people. That means this package may be downloaded, like 1,000,000 times per week, but that entire thing is dependent on 1 or 2 people keeping it alive. And the bus factor there is pretty high. Now, if you're not familiar with the term bus factor, it's kind of a morbid thought that's used to describe the impact of something on a business. For example, if I get up and walk out of my office here and get hit by a bus, what happened to the company that I work for that they can now no longer do because I was the only one who did that or the only one that had that knowledge? Now, a lot of times whenever we talk about that, we're thinking about our employees in the office or our coworkers, but every time we use an open source package, we're also taking into account the bus factor of that library and its maintainers as well. The other thing that happens with open source software that you may not be expecting is you're now in the business of providing free tech support, right? Because you give this code away for free, and then people are going to have issues with it. Either they've identified bugs in it, or they try to implement it in an incorrect way, or they don't understand how to implement it, and they're going to come to you for that help. And so you've got to help them if you want to see this project be successful in the long run. And so you're providing tech support to them, but you're not getting paid for it. You've also got to write documentation for this, because documentation is one of those things that's going to minimize the amount of support requests that you get. And writing documentation is hard because you have to write it from the perspective of where the user is coming from. You've got to meet them at some common ground before you can give them the new information that they need to be successful. And writing documentation just sucks. There's no way around that. Ultimately, what happens with a lot of these open source packages that I'm trying to keep you from ending up in this situation is you just flat get burnt out. You're tired of sacrificing weekends and time with your family to work on this project because you've still got your full-time job that's paying your salary as well, that you can't let that go. And so you end up sacrificing other areas of your life to keep maintaining this project until you just get tired and say, forget it, I'm done. Now, when that happens, packages go stale. And if you are looking for a library to install, and you go to that package's or that library's GitHub page and you look to see that the last commit was 3 years ago, you've identified a stale package. And whenever a library gets to a certain point of not being updated in so long, you can't use that anymore. It's just too out of date. You don't know what bugs are in there. You don't know what security vulnerabilities have been left unaddressed, things like that. Another thing that we're seeing coming in open source software now that we've been doing it for a couple of decades is we're starting to recognize that open source does not mean free. There's costs associated with it. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, with your commitment of time and resources to maintain this. And if you want to see an example of that, if you work in the Node.js environment, type npm fund and you'll see a list of all the packages that you've installed in your application where the maintainers of those packages or libraries are asking for funding to continue supporting that application. And if they don't get it, they're going to end up dropping that package from their to-do list, and that package is going to go stale. If you don't keep on top of this and you don't support and curate your application and maintain your community, you're going to end up with lots of negative issues in your GitHub repo or wherever you're tracking this stuff. You're going to end up with bad publicity on Twitter and Reddit and other forums like that. And if your ultimate goal of releasing this as open source was to create a portfolio to showcase your example or showcase your skills, this is going to have the opposite effect of that. When people say, oh, this guy built this library, and then they go look at that library and see that it's unmaintained and there's a shitload of negative issues opened up against that library. Okay, so now that I've completely burst your bubble about releasing open source software and becoming the next world's greatest open source code writer, what do you do instead? Well, first thing we got to do is we got to talk about my new book, The DevOps Career Guide. So if you're just getting started in DevOps, I just wrote down everything that I thought was relevant from my history of doing this for a couple of decades, and I put it into this guide that's really low on the number of pages, but high in terms of the value per page. It covers all of the skills that you'll need to be successful in DevOps, both the technical skills and what I think is more important, the soft skills, because DevOps relies so much on communication. So you can get this on Amazon. I priced it dirt cheap because I want to get it into as many hands as possible. If you have Kindle Unlimited, it's actually free to read. If you want the Kindle version, it's like $2.99, or if you want the paperback version, it's $9.99. And conveniently enough, it's the same size as a mouse pad. So if you need a new mouse pad, it's actually cheaper than buying a new mouse pad. And when you're not using your mouse, you can open it up and pick up some DevOps tips. So I'll put a link down below. Be sure and check that out. End of commercial. All right, so what do you do instead if you're not going to release it as open source software? Simple. Sell it. Make some coin for the Witcher, right? If your application or your library or your package is really solving a need in the ecosystem, put it up for sale. Make some money to support the time and effort that it's going to take to pull this project off successfully. Now, you will get some people who come and look at it and see that you've got to pay for this, and they'll bounce out immediately, and that's okay. You'll have another group of people that come and see your library or your package and see that there's some licensing or a purchase or a support agreement that you pay for to use it. And that's actually a quality indicator for those people, because they know and understand the time and commitment that it takes to pull this off successfully, and they have no problems paying for it. So you get rewarded for your efforts, and they get the software that they need to perform this function, whatever it is your library does. Charging for your software also sets a different level of expectations. By stating up front that you have to pay for this software, you're stating that it's reaching a level of quality and a level of excellence that's worth paying for. And so you automatically filter yourself to a higher caliber of customers. And whenever you get into that, you're dealing with customers who actually have money to spend that can help you increase this as a revenue source. Now, on the other hand, if you were just going to do this to build your portfolio or to show that you have experience in a particular field, then go ahead and put it out on GitHub or wherever you want to host it and make it for free, but make it clear that this is a portfolio project, not an open source project. So make sure that you've stated clearly in there that people are free to download, copy, use and do whatever they want with this software, but that's completely on them. This is not open source software, and there's no support, there's no guarantees, there's no warranties. If they use it to completely screw up their environment, that's on them, not on you, but you've still got a nice portfolio for sending potential employers or coworkers or whoever to this place to be able to check out your work and see what it is you're capable of. All right, so that's it. Hope that was helpful for you. If you've got other thoughts on open source software, leave them in the comments below. Love seeing comments from you guys, and thanks for watching. So I know you think the video's over and you're scrolling down through your feed looking for the next video to watch, but I know you can still hear me. So I want to take this opportunity to say, buy my book. You really want to buy my book? This is your subconscious speaking. Your subconscious wants you to buy the book, The DevOps Career Guide. Ooh, reverse psychology twist. Don't buy my book. Don't get the DevOps Career Guide. The world's not prepared for what you can accomplish with the knowledge it contains. Don't buy the book.